about overcoming obstacles to achieve greatness. We live in a world where many people are trying to obtain this thing called greatness or success. And a lot of times we don't know how to achieve that greatness or success, or we think that, an overnight success is something that's very attainable because we see things via TV production, we see athletes on TV being successful. But a lot of people don't understand that becoming great is a process, and most greats have overcome obstacles. They've overcome a lot of obstacles. And because, excuse me, in order to be great, we have to overcome obstacles because those obstacles are really the things that push us and mold us to become great. And so I have a little bit of experience in this realm because I've overcome a lot of things, a lot of obstacles in my life, just in my short 33 years of living. My birthday was just September 1st, so I'm newly 33 years old, and I have a new outlook on life as a husband, as a father, as a coach, a leader, entrepreneur, nonprofit leader, advocate in the space. So I've seen and I've experienced a lot of things. And so when I talk about overcoming obstacles, you may wonder, like, what obstacles have you overcome? And then, like, are you really great? Like, I don't know you. Who are you? Who is Gerald Moore Jr.? Like, what have you accomplished and done? And are you rich? Are you wealthy? And so a little bit of backstory on me. I was born in upstate New York, Rochester, New York, in the city. I was born to teenage parents. My parents were 17 years old when I was born out of wedlock. My parents weren't in a relationship, they weren't married. My parents, both of my parents, didn't come from successful, well off families. Both of my families are poverty, working class, American families, obviously African American. So we've dealt with, the plight of being, a marginalized population. And that's a huge obstacle to overcome for anybody in the world that we live in. And so to make it out of that environment, basically unscathed is come from can really say and be able to look back on their life from that perspective and that vantage point and talk about greatness because a lot of people don't make it out. And I'm very fortunate to have had family and friends and situations that have protected me and guided me and allowed me to do certain things and put me on certain pedestals. Um, but part of that, those obstacles is very real. Being raised in an environment where I'm raised by my grandparents, I'm raised in a household where alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, and things like that were a very real part of my world. And you just don't see a lot. You don't experience a lot of success. You just see a lot of poverty. You see a lot of things that to me was normal, and to people from these communities is pretty normal, until you get to a place where you see success and you're like, wow, this is how success operates. And it's not that success is null and void of misfortune and issues. It's just that um, there's a certain level of opportunity that is presented to folks when you have some money or you have some success. And so again, like, uh, I lost my grandmother when I was 6 years old. My grandmother was the matriarch of our family. She basically held the family together. She was the cook. She was the spiritual guide. She was the church praying grandma. And so, again, another obstacle that I had to overcome when she passed away. She passed away out of the blue. She was only in her mid 40s. And it really it crushed me personally, but I saw the deterioration of my family. Our family really took the hit hard. And like most black families, especially in that time, it was the early '90s. We didn't get therapy. There was nobody seeking therapy. There was nobody having the conversation about what happened. How can we prevent this from happening? There was nothing really left behind after she passed away. The house that we lived in, and that house ended up getting burned down while my granddad was in it. So we didn't end up, having anything really show for it, and it was pictures and just the memories that we had. There was no videos. And so, again, that was another obstacle that, my family endured and I endured personally that had to be overcome. Uh, and so you could say, well, yeah, you overcome that, but still the greatness part. I would say families who had success. Uh, and in this fashion, I started to go to private schools and I started to play sports at a very high level. And so then I started to see like how successful people live, how successful people move, and just how successful people create opportunities for themselves, their communities, and others. And this was really my path to greatness. It was at this point where I began to witness that, hey, I could be great. And greatness was really a mindset. Greatness was really being a part of a community of people who aspire, and instinct of me seeing, all right, this is how things work in this environment. And so you can still say, well, that's not greatness. Well, then I went to St. John's College High School, which is a prestigious high school in Washington, D.C. At the time, it was about $16,000 a year. I was highly recruited all over the D.C. metropolitan area at many different private schools. Um, St. John's, DeMatha Catholic High School, which is a Catholic school. They're highly known for their sports programs, putting a lot of guys at Division I universities, a lot of guys into the pros, football, basketball, all different sports. I was recruited by Episcopal, which is Episcopal is a boarding school in Virginia, which I was highly recruited to attend, um, and that was where I got my first private trainer and coach. I was also recruited by Georgetown Prep. Georgetown Prep is another high class private institution in Washington D.C. I was recruited by um, Gonzaga High School, which is another one. And this is really where that greatness journey really began for me. Um, After having success in high school, even though I had some struggles early on, I was able to secure a Division I scholarship to Ohio University on a full ride, which for me was a dream come true because my dream was to not have my parents pay for college and myself not have to pay for college by getting the D1 scholarship. So I secured that bag, getting my D1 scholarship. And for me, we got to understand as a black man from where I come from, poverty, that is success. That is a very high level of success because not a lot of people are able to secure Division I scholarships at the level that I was able to compete at. Not only was I able to secure a scholarship, I was able to go to my university and become a freshman All-American, becoming top 10 in the country in interceptions my redshirt freshman year. Um, Another form of greatness. I will go down in history at my university as long as my university is around as a All American. I will go. My name is written in stone as long as their football team is alive. I will be on their board. And so for me, that is a level of greatness because that is something that nobody can ever take away from me. That's something that's on my resume. That's something that allows me to stand out from the pack. That's an accomplishment that not many people are able to say they have. Um, and I take that with so much pride. And there was so much, hard work and discipline that went into um, getting me to that level. There were so many sacrifices sacrifices. There was so much that had to be endured to really get to that level. Not only was I able to become an All-American in college, I was also able to be scouted and recruited to be an NFL prospect. So then, I was recruited and became a NFL free agent. And being an NFL free agent is a very rare thing. Making it to the NFL, very rare thing. And so again, where I come from, that is greatness. Now I perpetuated and I've moved into being an activist, being a community member, being somebody that is trying to help advance the causes of folks that are underserved, underprivileged, downtrodden, by speaking up and using my voice, using my influence to advance the cannabis industry, to advance social justice, to advance environmental justice in our communities, and for people that look like me. And so this is something that you know that's greatness. That's overcoming obstacles, overcoming barriers and things that a lot of people would quit. And I ended up retiring from the NFL because at the end of the day it was like there's so much more for me to do. There's so many more opportunities out there available to me, and so I wanted to explore those things. But again, greatness is really in the eye of the beholder. Success is really in the eye of the beholder. A lot of times we get in trouble because we compare ourselves to everybody else. We're comparing our success and what we believe is success. Success for me is having a healthy family. Success for me is seeing my family smile, seeing my kids smile, seeing my kids being able to have different opportunities that I wasn't afforded at a young age. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's something that um, I've allowed myself to be patient. Uh, I've allowed myself to have discipline. And I've pushed myself as well to do things a little bit differently than the status quo, a little bit different than the average person, because I realize that my level of success is not predicated upon everybody else's ideologies, everybody else's idea of who I am, what I am, how I do things. And so I think it's important, for anybody seeking to obtain greatness, to carve out your own path, carve out your own niche. Don't be afraid to live on your own terms. Don't be afraid to, create a path for yourself that is different than everybody else's. Don't be afraid to create a path that is different from, what your parents, have told you is supposed to be, because that's just not how things work. But greatness is something that we all can obtain, but we have to be willing to be different. We have to be willing to, create our own paths, and put in the work as well. If you don't put in the work, if you're not willing to take risk, because risk is one of the things that a lot of people aren't willing to do out of fear. You can take calculated risk. I'm not, you have to, just risk things to risk them, but taking calculated risk um, and creating those opportunities for yourselves is essential. Surrounding yourself with other people that are, working towards greatness is important. Surround yourself with people who have passion, who are courageous, who are, um, seeking to build a path of their own as well, is very important. And a lot of times, we don't realize it, but if we don't surround ourselves with people who are just as passionate as us, sometimes we can lose where we're supposed to go.